Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. A judge has been shot dead in Afghanistan's eastern city of Jalalabad. He's the third judge to be killed in less than a month as violence continues to rattle the war-torn country despite ongoing peace talks in Doha. In India, protesting farmers have warned that they will hold a nationwide tractor rally if the government doesn't revoke the contentious farm laws. This comes as international celebrities, including music sensation Rihanna and climate activist Greta Thunberg, voice support for the farmers. 175 farmers have died since the protests broke out in November last year. Pakistan has reaffirmed its pledge to support Kashmiris in the right for their right to self-determination. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Kashmiri's struggle for freedom is just and non-negotiable. He said Pakistan expects US President Joe Biden to address human rights violations in the occupied valley. Pakistan has conducted a successful training launch of a surface-to-surface ballistic missile. The missile is capable of delivering nuclear and conventional warheads up to a range of 290 kilometers. Pakistan has launched a nationwide vaccination drive against COVID-19 with the first jabs administered to frontline health workers. The health ministry says 56 people have died and nearly 1,400 people tested positive overnight. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has suspended entry to the kingdom from 20 countries to help curb the spread of the virus. Globally, there are over 2.25 million deaths and nearly 104 million infections. Myanmar police have filed charges against ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi for illegally importing communications equipment. Police say the former state councillor will be detained until the 15th of February. The country's army seized power on Monday, detaining political leadership and imposing emergency for 1 year. And the Pakistan Cricket Board has decided to retain the same squad for the second test against South Africa. The second match starts on Thursday at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium. Pakistan are leading the two-match series 1-0. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. In Afghanistan, a judge has been shot dead in the eastern city of Jalalabad. Police say the judge was heading to work when he was attacked by militants. It's the third judge to be killed in Afghanistan in less than a month. Earlier, militants shot dead two women judges working for the Supreme Court in Kabul. ISIS has claimed some of the target killings in Afghan capital, but the government blames the Taliban for the murders. Separately, 4 security personnel were killed overnight by a car bomb at a military base in restive Uruzgan province. Violence has surged across Afghanistan in recent months despite ongoing intra-Afghan talks. Pakistan says turning back from the ongoing Afghan peace process would be a tragedy. Islamabad's envoy to the UN says substantial progress has been made towards a political solution to the country's conflict. At a UN briefing on Afghanistan, Munir Akram said a political solution is the only path to peace. He said Pakistan believes in broad-based peace talks involving the full spectrum of Afghanistan's political landscape. The envoy said Al-Qaeda, ISIS and other international terrorist groups should not use Afghan territory against any country. He urged all the parties to Afghan conflict to step up against violence and seize the historic opportunity of a political settlement. In India, protesting farmers have warned that they will hold a nationwide tractor rally if the government doesn't revoke the contentious farm laws. This comes as international celebrities voice support for the farmers' demand. More in this report.
New Delhi has been turned into a fortress as police blocked access to farmers' protest sites with barbed wire and trenches across approach roads. Even journalists have been denied entry to the sites. But farmer unions say they will go on a nationwide march with 4 million tractors. Their protest has drawn international support, with many celebrities and politicians standing in solidarity with the farmers. In a tweet, music sensation Rihanna raised concerns over the internet blockade at the protest sites. Climate activist Greta Thunberg and U.S. Vice President's niece, Mina Harris, also weighed in on the farmers' protest. Earlier, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and UK lawmakers condemned the police violence against the farmers. Around 175 farmers have died since the agitation started in November last year.
Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has called on the global community to play its role in resolving the Kashmir crisis. The situation in Occupied Valley has worsened ever since New Delhi revoked its status in August 2019. Details in this report by our correspondent Manahil Ahmed.
Occupied Kashmir has been reeling under an indefinite security lockdown and communications blackout for well over a year. Pakistan has repeatedly urged the United Nations and the world to act on behalf of Kashmiris. Speaking exclusively to Indus News, Qureshi highlighted this fact, saying Pakistan has raised the Kashmir issue at every world forum. He added that Pakistan expects a serious effort from the Biden administration to resolve the humanitarian crisis in Kashmir.
Well, the new presidency and the Biden administration has been very vocal on human rights. Look at their statements before coming into office. I expect them to live up to what they had said earlier on and address the human issue. You know, the military siege has been going on for now 18 months. You know, there's a communication blackout. There's a blockade. Independent journalists are not allowed in. International observers are not allowed in. Human rights organizations have been shunned out. So, you know, these are the things that need to be highlighted.
Nearly 300 Kashmiris have been killed by Indian troops since Article 370 was revoked in August 2019. Advisor to the Prime Minister on National Security, Moyed Yusuf, said Pakistan is confronted by an Indian administration that has gone from bad to worse.
The Prime Minister of Pakistan talked about India taking one step and Pakistan taking two to match that. Why? Because that's his vision. Unfortunately, since this government has come into office, India has taken about 1,000 steps, but in the opposite direction. That's where the change is required. This Pakistan is confronted by an India that's gone from bad to worse, where intolerance now has reached a level that it's reflecting in foreign policy every day.
He said Pakistan has always chosen diplomatic and legal channels to resolve the Kashmir crisis. Earlier this week, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged Pakistan and India to come together and discuss the issue. However, India has continued to rebuff any international mediation. Manahil Ahmed, Indus News, Islamabad.
Pakistan has conducted a successful training launch of a surface-to-surface ballistic missile. The missile is capable of delivering nuclear and conventional warheads of up to a range of 290 kilometers. The missile was test-fired at the culmination of the annual field training exercise of the Army Strategic Forces Command. President Arif Alvi, Prime Minister Imran Khan and the service chiefs congratulated the scientists and engineers on completing the successful test of the missile. Judges at the highest UN court have ruled that they can hear a case filed by Iran against the United States seeking to have sanctions against Iran lifted. A majority of the judges found that the court has the jurisdiction in the dispute, a ruling described by Iran's foreign minister as a victory for his country. Iran brought the case in 2018 after former President Donald Trump's administration imposed sanctions following Trump's decision to abandon a 2015 pact. US President Joe Biden has said he wants to return to that pact, although Tehran and Washington still disagree on a range of issues. Earlier in the day, a State Department spokesman said the US could reconsider rejoining the nuclear deal only if Iran returns to full compliance. Israel's demolition rate of 840 structures in the West Bank this year has displaced over 500 Palestinian children. According to Save the Children charity, vital infrastructure such as water and sanitation facilities have also been destroyed. In April, Israel said demolitions in Area C of the West Bank would be halted due to the coronavirus pandemic. But despite this promise, demolitions have continued at a record pace. The charity said the schools and agricultural infrastructure are under a constant threat of demolition. Israel's moves violate international law and have been slammed by rights bodies. Myanmar's National League for Democracy party says the military has raided several of its offices and seized documents and computers. The party has urged the coup leaders to stop such unlawful acts. Meanwhile, the public dissent against the coup in Myanmar is growing. Staff at 70 hospitals in 30 towns across the country have stopped work to protest the military coup. Meanwhile, China and Russia blocked UN Security Council's condemnation of the military coup in the country. The UNSC met on Tuesday but failed to agree on a joint statement after Beijing and Moscow did not support the move. The blockage comes amid China's warnings that international pressure will only make things worse in Myanmar. The Kremlin has defended its crackdown on protesters demanding the release of opposition figure Alexei Navalny. His allies have vowed to continue putting pressure on the authorities despite police detaining nearly 1,400 pro-Navalny protesters. Speaking to the media, a Kremlin spokesman said holding of unauthorized rallies raises concerns. Dmitry Peskov said that the calls by Navalny's allies to take to the streets following his jailing were a provocation. On Tuesday, Navalny was handed a 3.5-year sentence by a court for violating the conditions of a sentence. The US, Britain, Germany and the EU have urged Moscow to immediately free Navalny. US has extended the New START nuclear disarmament treaty with Russia for 5 years. In a statement, as Secretary of State Antony Blinken said President Biden pledged to keep the American people safe from nuclear threats by restoring the treaty. He said extending the treaty ensures verifiable limits on Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles and heavy bombers until 2026. Moscow welcomed the US move, saying the extension guarantees transparency and predictability. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a bill extending the accord on Friday. It is the last major pact of its kind between the two countries. In the US, the legal team of former President Donald Trump has challenged the Senate's authority to try him as a private citizen on an impeachment charge. Trump's lawyers made the objections as both the sides filed briefs with the Senate a week before the trial. Trump's defense team said the chamber also lacked jurisdiction to prevent him from holding office again. The former president denied the charge of incitement of insurrection through his lawyers and called the trial unconstitutional. Meanwhile, Democrat impeachment managers said Trump should be convicted and barred from holding public office in the future. In an 80-page brief, they said Trump pointed a mob of supporters like a loaded cannon at the US Capitol. US President Joe Biden has signed 3 executive orders for a fairer, orderly and humane immigration system. They seek to reunite migrant families, split up existing policies, and review the Trump-era migration agenda. One of the orders will set up a task force to reunite migrant families separated at the U.S.-Mexico border between 2017 and 18. The second and the third orders seek a review of Trump's immigration policies that curtailed asylum, slowed legal immigration, and cancelled funding to foreign countries. Speaking at the White House, Biden said he was not making new laws, but eliminating the bad policy.
Make it clear, there's a lot of talk, with good reason, about the number of executive orders that I have signed. I'm not making new law. I'm eliminating bad policy. What I'm doing is taking on the issues that 99% of them, that the last president of the United States issued executive orders I thought were very counterproductive to our security, counterproductive to who we are as a country, particularly in the area of immigration. This is about how America is safer, stronger, more prosperous when we have a fair, orderly, and humane legal immigration system. And with the first action today, we're going to work to undo the moral and national shame of the previous administration that literally, not figuratively, ripped children from the arms of their families, their mothers and fathers at the border, and with no plan, none whatsoever, to reunify the children who are still in custody and their parents. The second action addresses the root causes of our migration to our southern border. And the third action, the third order I'm going to be signing, orders a full review of the previous administration's harmful and counterproductive immigration.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Pakistan has kicked off its COVID-19 vaccination drive with the first jab delivered to frontline health workers. Federal Minister for Planning Asad Umar formally initiated the national immunization drive in a ceremony in Islamabad. The National COVID-19 Command and Operations Center says the first tranche of vaccines has reached all federating units. Special Assistant to PM on Health, Dr. Faisal Sultan, says getting vaccinated will be voluntary. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded another 56 deaths overnight, pushing the toll to 11,802. Health officials reported nearly 1,400 infections in the last 24 hours. They say currently there are more than 33,000 active cases in the country. Out of 549,000 people infected so far, 504,000 have recovered. Saudi Arabia has suspended entry to the kingdom from 20 countries to help curb the spread of the coronavirus. Saudi state media says diplomats, Saudi citizens, medical practitioners and their families are exempted from the ban. The kingdom has reported over 6,000 deaths with more than 368,000 infections. Meanwhile, vaccine rollouts are facing roadblocks and challenges. World Health Organization chief has also warned the vaccine nationalism currently pitting countries against each other is harmful to all. The WHO team has visited a major virus research laboratory in China's city of Wuhan, seeking clues to the origins of the COVID-19. Globally, the virus has claimed 2.25 million lives and infected over 103.8 million people so far. Democrats are taking steps to push through President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan without Republican support. The Senate voted along party lines, with Democrats edging out Republicans 50 to 49. This opens the debate on a fiscal 2021 budget resolution with coronavirus aid spending instructions. Using this strategy unlocks a legislative tool needed for Democrats to enact Biden's package in the face of Republican opposition. Talking to reporters, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Biden termed the Republican proposal for a $618 billion package inadequate. Earlier, Biden met 10 Republican senators to discuss the possibility of a scaled-back economic rescue plan. Amazon says its founder, Jeff Bezos, will step down as the chief executive officer and become the executive chairman. The company says Bezos will transition to the role of executive chair in the third quarter of this year. Amazon Web Services chief executive Andy Jassy will take over as the CEO of the company. In a memo to employees, Bezos said as executive chair, he will stay engaged in important Amazon initiatives. Bezos added he will have the time and energy needed to focus on other passions. The announcement comes after the company reported quarterly sales above $100 billion for the first time. Amazon's net sales rose to over $125 billion, beating analyst expectations of $119.7 billion. A SpaceX prototype rocket exploded on landing during a high-altitude experimental launch from Boca Chica, Texas. The Starship, SN9, blew upon its final descent like the SN8 destroyed before it. It was not immediately clear what went wrong. The Federal Aviation Administration said it will oversee an investigation into the crash landing. The rocket was a prototype for the heavy lift rocket being developed by billionaire Elon Musk's private space company. It plans to carry humans and 100 tons of cargo on future missions to the Moon and Mars. In Australia, thousands of people have fled to evacuation centres as bushfire grows on the outskirts of the provincial capital, Perth. This comes as 2 million residents of Western Australia are under a 5-day coronavirus lockdown until Friday. Authorities told residents of suburb Bullsbrook to ignore a stay-home order and leave immediately as hot weather picked up. The Western States Premier Mark McGowan said the region is facing an unprecedented situation. Authorities said the fire has destroyed 71 homes and a swathe of more than 9,000 hectares. Officials say 6 firefighters have had minor injuries. So far, no fatalities have been reported so far, while the cause of the fires is still unknown. More than 8,000 people from Asia, the Middle East and North Africa remain in Bosnia after the EU countries sealed their borders due to the coronavirus pandemic. Many lives in tents in the woods or houses and factories damaged in the Bosnian War of the 1990s. Details in this report.
Thousands of migrants stuck in northern Bosnia. Children in one family are waiting out the bitter winter and missing their mother. Iraqi citizen Farhan Hazam and his 3 children were separated from his wife and another child while trying to cross into European Union member Croatia. Police turned Hazam and his children back to Bosnia while his wife and another child made it across and then on to Germany. The family are sheltering in a house owned by Bosnians living abroad who agreed to let the family stay there with the help of a local charity.
40. Go and come back, go and come back. 40 game. I know it's 1 game, go, 2 game, go Slovenia and come back. It's I know it's police say, sorry, no, can't help you.
Zahida Bihorak Odobashik, a school teacher and activist, visits the Hazam family with supplies as well as other migrants living in a snowbound tent camp.
Those who try to help these people are condemned and mistreated. Very often, they are victims of verbal and physical violence. I have been the victim of a physical attack by individuals, members of certain Facebook groups, calling for persecution and violence against these migrants and those who help them.
The EU has repeatedly called on Bosnian authorities to provide accommodation to at least 1,000 people sleeping rough during the winter. Since early 2018, the bloc has provided more than 88 million euros to help Bosnia manage the migrant crisis.
More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. West Bank has been home to Israel military bases and checkpoints that restrict Palestinian movement. In the city of Nablus, a treehouse cafe is open to give people an opportunity to immerse in nature. Details in this report.
A cafe in the occupied West Bank has a treehouse exterior with walls designed to resemble branches. Use of wood branches and soft, earthy tones, the cafe provides nature-like surroundings. This Palestinian cafe hopes to surround its customers with the feel of nature as tourism has become limited by the pandemic and Israeli restrictions. The cafe is famous for its tasty coffee and traditional Middle Eastern cuisine.
This place is very nice. When I enter it, I remember the old days. They say Nablus is Little Damascus. So when they opened this place, I really felt like it is Little Damascus here. Also, a lot of people visit the old city in Nablus. And when they will see this place, they will be more attracted to the area, and that will encourage tourism in Palestine.
The Treehouse Cafe was built in 2020 as the world's economy took a dive due to COVID-19 outbreak.
We Palestinian residents, because of the occupation, cannot go to many places. So when there is such a place like this, designed like this, it gives the feeling of being in nature, which is nice. Whoever cannot reach nature outside, they can come here as an alternative.
The pandemic and prolonged lockdowns in the West Bank have led to severe economic fallout. The owner of the cafe, Ahmed Akub, says the cafe has been open to attract tourists to the city.
Robotics company Boston Dynamics has unveiled an expanded product line, including a new version of its robot called Spot. After the addition of an armed dog-like Spot can find your slippers all by itself and can also bring them to you. What about Spot in this report?
Boston Dynamics is teaching its robot dog Spot new tricks. The four-legged Spot can perform autonomous remote inspections and data collection. The robot went on sale last June, starting at $74,500. The company says there are over 400 Spots out in the world, including on a factory floor at Ford and helping with oil rig inspection for BP. Spot comes with self-charging capabilities and a dock. The company says the new arm-like protrusion with a gripper has been in development for some time and was top of the wish list for many clients.
Where we say, that's a thing I want you to grab, go grab it. And the robot does everything else. It will figure out a way to get there. It will figure out a way to reach out, grab the object, and it will figure out how to pull it back at the velocity that you've told it to.
While robotics was on the rise before the pandemic, the seismic changes in the workplace and home lives are accelerating trends towards a viable robot workforce. Most of the shift will likely be to software-based solutions. A consulting firm, McKinsey, recently surveyed 800 executives. It found that 70% of companies have accelerated the adoption of automation and artificial intelligence.
Suddenly, the number of spaces where our technology, the key story of taking a person out of a dangerous environment has expanded pretty tremendously over the last year. Now, I think that's probably a short-term blip where as people start getting back to work and the workspaces become safer, I think people will reevaluate the need of that type of automation in their space.
The Spot arm was teased in a jaw-dropping video showing it dancing alongside other Boston Dynamic robots. The YouTube video has clocked up nearly 29 million views since its release on 29th of December.
Hollywood period drama Man Can Me Too revenge satire promising young women have been nominated for this year's Golden Globe Awards in film. More in this report.
Television shows The Crown and The Mandalorian will be among those competing for Best Series. The contest for Best Drama Film Awards will also include Nomadland, The Trial of the Chicago 7, and The Father.
The $10 found a father without a father, got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter.
The film version of the hit Broadway musical Hamilton is among nominees for a separate category for musicals and comedies. The winners will be revealed in a ceremony on February 28th.
Wall Street stocks have opened higher following a strong two-day rally. Investors cheered strong earnings from Google's parent company Alphabet and Amazon. Shares of Alphabet surged over 7% after the technology giant reported 23% revenue growth. Amazon's reported earnings have doubled the market estimates. The indices of S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite were up, but Dow Jones Industrial Average Index traded lower. Meanwhile, oil prices rose in Asia after hitting their highest in about a year in the previous session. In cricket, the Pakistan Cricket Board has decided to retain the same 17-player squad for the second test against South Africa. The second match starts on Thursday at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium. The playing 11 will be finalised by Pakistan cricket team captain Babar Azam after consultations with head coach Misbah-ul Haq. Pakistan are 1-0 up in the series after winning the first test by 7 wickets in Karachi. Fawad Alam was declared player of the match for his match-winning ton, while debutant Noman Ali took 7 wickets. The teams are also scheduled to play 3 T20 internationals starting from 11th of February. Former Test cricketer Shoaib Mohammad is with us for more on this story. Thank you for your time, Shoaib. Pakistan has retained the same squad for the second test against South Africa. So one might guess that the pitch will be spinners friendly. So what's your take on this?
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. Pakistan has the better strength on the bowling department, spin bowling department, and they had won the first test match, and it's very likely that they will be going into the second test with similar or same squad, to be very honest, and the winning combination is always the best thing to get into the next test match if you had won a test match. So definitely it won't be any surprise for me that they'll be getting an underprepared wicket, and most likely the second match also would turn up where, you know, the results might be within 4 days of time, maybe.
So Shoaib, South Africa no easy an opponent and can bounce back at any time. In what areas Pakistan needs to work hard to clean sweep the series?
They need to concentrate on their batting. They need to put up a good score. Had they been facing 140 plus runs in the second inning, things would have been the other way around, I reckon. And because Pakistan's batting strength is not so great, and in that manner, Pakistan has to concentrate. They got to play to their potential, get those single and doubles rather than playing big shots, and put up a reasonably good total against the South Africans. They know they have won the test match. They know that they are vulnerable against spin bowling attack. And on top of that, Noman, he has been wonder boy for Pakistan, a new find, and definitely South African batting has to put up a great display against that kind of bowling display of Noman.
Shoaib Mohammad, thank you for your time at Indus News. We really appreciate that. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.